In this tutorial, we're going to go over the basics of Illustrator on the iPad. So right now we see your home screen. And from here, you're going to have a couple of different options. You can open documents. You can go to tutorials, which I really recommend doing by clicking on that light bulb. But usually we'll be at the home screen and we'll be either choosing a recent document or opening up a new document. And usually I'm going to start with a custom size. When I do custom size, I'm usually going to start with a unit in pixel or inches, depending on whether it's for the web or for print. And here I'm going to do a 10 by 10 inch document for print. And when it's for print, I'm usually going to do the CMYK color mode. And then if I'm doing it for the web, I will be doing the RGB color mode. So here we have the artboard that's opened up, that's 10 by 10 inches. We have the secondary control button, which lets us do things like constrain aspect ratios and do other kind of secondary features. And then on the left, we had the tools, and on the right, we have other tool options that usually kind of apply to different ways to modify vector graphics. And then other options on the right there. And so what we'll usually start out doing is we'll usually start out drawing basic shapes. So I just clicked on the rectangle tool, and if we click and hold, we'll see that we have a rectangle, an ellipse, a triangle, or a star option for our basic shapes. And when we draw a rectangle, we basically, draw from one corner to the other, and that will determine its size. If we hold that constrain button in the bottom there, it will open up and keep it a perfect square. And that constrain button can vary. It can be in different places depending on where you put it. And now we're seeing when you draw the shape, you have these options that come up on the bottom. You can change the stacking order by clicking on that stacking option. You can change the stroke width, right? And you just move those sliders to change it. You can also change the opacity between 0 and 100. Okay. And then we saw the other options to add, remove, and lock those layers. So a circle is going to work similarly to the rectangle. And then when we get to the star and the triangle, that's going to be a little bit different because you can have different sides. So you have to see that up and down arrow and then kind of slide up or down, and that will give you different numbers of sides for your polygon. And you can also rotate all your shapes. And again, if you hit that constrain button, it will rotate in 15-degree increments. And then you see all these kind of controllers have different features, and a really good one to know is when you see those little circles inside corner points, you can curve those corner points. And you can also curve them individually by changing your selection tool from the main selection tool up top to the second tool, which is the direct selection tool, which lets you select individual vector and corners so that you can curve just one corner of a shape. Now we see how we add different fill colors. The outside circle gives you the hue, and the inside square gives you the saturation and the lightness or the darkness of the color. If you do have a color you like, you want to go down to swatches and click the plus button, and that will add that exact color to your swatches so you can then reuse it on different shapes. And that's really important because you're not going to want to have, usually you only want to have a couple different colors, and so you want to make sure you have the exact same ones, and putting them into the swatch panel is important for that. So now we see the layer panel opening up. This is important the more complicated your designs get. And you can't modify the layer order in quite the same way. You see I can't really drag and drop it, but I could access the scissor icon to the right and cut and paste layers. But generally speaking, I want to make new layers when I have more complex artworks. I'm going to want to hide or show or lock layers at a time. And we'll see that in action in a later video. Here we have properties. Okay, and then that is, see the undo button. We also see how to export our files once we're ready to go.